Hello and welcome to Lost and Found. Like and subscribe for many more horror stories to come. Offline. Part 1. Enter the house. Elijah Hayes wasn't the kind of person who looked forward to anything anymore, except fear, not real-life fear. That kind was messy, unpredictable, and full of consequences. Elijah craved the curated dread of horror games, the kind that made his pulse spike and palm sweat, but always let him wake up safe in his cluttered apartment when it was over. He was 33, unemployed, and rarely left his chair. His world was the glowing grid of high-end virtual reality systems, and he prided himself on being nearly unshakable. Ghost simulators, demonic possession quests, body horror dreamscapes. He'd seen it all and beaten them twice. His followers online called him Dead Inside 91, and he wore that name like a badge. So when the message hit his inbox at 3:17 a.m., just as he was logging off from a dull werewolf escape sim, he assumed it was spam. Sender, unknown. Subject, you're ready now. Attachment, offline beta.virx, 1.6 terabytes. No company logo, no intro pitch, just that one line and a massive file. Elijah stared at it for a long moment. It could be malware, or some troll mod designed to brick his rig, but something about the timing. You're ready now felt personal, almost like a challenge. He clicked it. The upload took 10 minutes, which was suspiciously fast given the size. The game installed itself without a prompt. No launch screen, no menus. His headset buzzed with an unfamiliar hum and then darkness. No tutorial, no loading bar. Just total blackness. Then the faintest sound of wind. Elijah blinked behind the goggles. This wasn't how any game had ever started. Then, a single word whispered in his right ear, like it came from inside his skull. Begin. The world snapped into place like a curtain drawn open. He stood on a gravel driveway leading to a decrepit Victorian mansion. The sun was setting, casting the sky in an unnatural blood orange hue. Crows screamed in the distance. Overgrown hedges flanked the front steps, and a brass knobbed door loomed, slightly ajar. Graphics, photorealistic, too realistic. His feet felt the uneven crunch of gravel beneath his boots. He could smell the mildew in the air and the faint copper tinge of something rotting. Okay, Elijah muttered. Nice sensory integration. He reached up, half expecting to feel the edges of his VR rig or the tracking gloves. Nothing. His hands were bare. The environment didn't glitch when he moved fast. No loading jitter. No delay between command and reaction. I don't know what engine this is, he said, voice shaky. But damn. He pushed open the door and stepped inside. The house swallowed him. Inside, the air turned heavy. Cold. The kind of cold that slid under clothes and settled into bones. The entry hall stretched longer than the exterior suggested. Cobwebs clung to chandeliers. Portraits lined the walls, faces smeared into distorted expressions, eyes scratched out or missing entirely. A game this sophisticated should have had some kind of UI, health bar, inventory, even a flashlight. But Elijah had nothing, just his senses, and the thick, creeping feeling of being watched. He heard a click behind him. The door had shut. Scripted event, he said aloud, trying to anchor himself. Classic isolation setup. He turned to test it. The knob turned, but the door wouldn't budge. No surprise. Games never made it that easy. A staircase curled up to a second floor. To the left, a long hallway stretched into shadow. Elijah hesitated. Every instinct told him to go upstairs, but horror logic meant the basement was probably where the big scares were. He grinned to himself. Let's make it interesting. He headed down the hallway. Each footstep echoed unnaturally, like the house was amplifying them. The walls were lined with cracked wallpaper and faded photographs of children, dozens of them. Same 5 kids, same hollow eyes, appearing over and over in different clothes and poses. Weird. He reached a door halfway down the hall. It opened before he touched it. A nursery, wooden crib, dust-covered rocking chair, mobile turning slowly despite no wind. And then, a sound. Elijah froze. It was soft at first, a lullaby, warped and slow, like it was being played on a decaying cassette. He stepped inside, drawn by the music. The mobile above the crib spun faster now, its tiny porcelain clowns clicking together as they rotated. He took a step closer, and the chair creaked. Elijah's heart skipped. He turned. There was someone sitting in it, a woman, or something shaped like one, dressed in an old-fashioned black gown, head bowed. Her hair was long and tangled, covering her face. She rocked slowly, back and forth, in perfect time with the mobile. Elijah reached out instinctively to pause the game. Nothing happened. No menu. No blink to exit. Pause game, he said aloud. Exit to dashboard. Nothing. The woman stopped rocking. Her head jerked up. Eyes locked on his. Milky. Wrong. Not rendered. Real. Elijah stepped back. She stood, and in one movement rushed him. He stumbled, tripped, fell backward, and hit the ground hard, too hard. He felt the wood crack under his back. Air left his lungs. His head rang from the impact. She was gone. The room was empty. The chair rocked slowly. Elijah lay there, chest heaving. Jesus Christ. Then a faint whisper in his ear again. You feel that, don't you? His blood ran cold. The voice wasn't part of the environment. It bypassed the space around him and slithered directly into his thoughts. He scrambled up and ran back down the hallway. He had to get out, had to reboot, reset, something, anything. The front door was gone. In its place, a solid wall with another portrait hanging crookedly in the center, a new one, of him. Panic set in. Not the fun kind, not the thrilling tension he chased in games. This was different. He sprinted to the staircase, taking the steps 2 at a time. The second floor had more doors, most shut tight. One at the end was open just a crack. Orange light flickered from within. He walked toward it, chest tight. Inside, a parlor with an old TV. Static flickered on the screen. A single armchair faced it, occupied. Not the woman this time. It was him, Elijah Hayes. Slouched in the chair, mouth open in a silent scream, head turned just enough to reveal. His headset, still on, still blinking. The version in the chair looked pale, too pale, dead pale. Elijah stared in silence, and then the version in the chair moved. It looked up and smiled. You're ready now, it said. Then the screen went black. The black screen lingered, not just on the TV, on everything. No light, no static, no sound. Then, slowly, Elijah realized it wasn't a screen. He'd gone blind. He waved a hand in front of his face. Nothing. System reset, he said out loud, voice trembling. Emergency override. End session. Silence. Power off. Still nothing. His heart pounded. Sweat chilled on his skin. He stumbled back, reached out for a wall that wasn't there anymore, and then, as quickly as it had vanished, the world snapped back into view. But it was different. The house remained, but changed. Dim, grainy, distorted, like he was seeing it through a CRT filter. Shadows too sharp, corners too dark. Every sound, from the creak of the floor to the distant ticking of an unseen clock, was amplified, unnatural. Elijah stood alone in the hallway. The door behind him, the one that had led to the parlor with his dead double, was gone. In its place, a mirror, a full-length antique mirror, and in its reflection, he wasn't alone. A figure stood just behind him, barely visible, faceless. He spun around, nothing. He turned back to the mirror, still there. Okay, he muttered, pulse racing. This is deep fake-out, psychological loop, like layered madness or Metaphor VR. I've seen this. But he hadn't felt it like this, not in any sim. He moved, and the figure in the mirror mirrored him, but always with a delay, like it had to think about copying him. A glitch, a feature, number. It was watching him. He backed away, heart thudding in his throat, and the hallway stretched behind him as he walked. Not lengthened, stretched. The wallpaper melted, dripping into blackness. The wood grain warped into spirals. This wasn't just high-res horror. It was breaking the rules of VR entirely. And then, the whisper came again. This isn't playtime anymore. He turned toward the voice and found himself in a different room. No transition, no loading effect. Just suddenly elsewhere. This room was smaller, bare walls, wooden chair in the center, one door, one bulb overhead, swinging slightly, though the air was still. On the chair sat an object, a headset. His headset, down to the chip in the strap he'd cracked 6 months ago. He approached cautiously. The air shimmered around the device. A low-frequency hum throbbed in his bones. Something about it called to him. If this was a simulation, maybe putting the headset on inside the game would boot him out. Like a nested system override. He hesitated only a second, then grabbed it and slid it on. Darkness again. Then, a sudden jolt of pain. Not imagined, not programmed, real. Like needles stabbing into his temples. He screamed, and the world rebooted again. Now he was back in his apartment. Or a replica of it. Something was off. The lighting was too dim. The posters on the wall weren't the right ones. Subtly altered. Wrong fonts. Movie titles misspelled. The Exorcist, Silence of the Lamp, and The Window. It didn't face the street anymore. It faced the house. That house. The mansion from before. Just sitting outside his window like it had always been there. Elijah stared at it in stunned silence. A knock came at the apartment door. Slow, deliberate. He didn't move. Another knock. And then, his phone lit up on the desk, buzzing. Unknown caller. With trembling fingers, he answered. There was no voice on the other end, just breathing. And then his own voice said, "You brought it back with you." Click. The line went dead. He dropped the phone and stumbled toward the door. Maybe someone had come over. Maybe this was some massive prank, an ARG he'd been unknowingly pulled into. Some new immersive social experience. He threw open the door. Nobody there, except footprints, wet ones, leading into the apartment, his apartment. Elijah stepped back, following them with his eyes. They led to the bathroom. The door was half open. Inside, the lights were off. He swallowed. "Don't go in there," he whispered to himself. But his body moved anyway. The bathroom mirror was shattered, not cracked, spiderwebbed, as if something had punched its way out. The footprints ended at the base of the sink. Something had climbed through. He stared into the shards, trying to make sense of what he was seeing, and then his reflection blinked. But he hadn't. A sharp crack echoed behind him. He spun and was back in the mansion, the same nursery, the same crib. But this time, the mobile above it wasn't spinning. It was broken. And from the crib came a quiet rasping, something breathing, slow, wet, too slow for anything human. Elijah didn't want to look, but he had to. He approached the crib and looked inside. It wasn't a baby. It was a curled mass of limbs, wrong angles, skin too pale. No eyes, just a mouth that stretched wide and whispered, "You died, Elijah." His breath caught. What? The creature crawled toward him, dragging its body over the crib's edge, bones cracking with each movement. "You died. Hours ago." "Number no. I'm playing a game. I put the headset on. I launched it. This is a sim. A horror title. It's just really good." The thing smiled. "Then why haven't you blinked?" Elijah froze. Had he? He tried. Nothing. No instinct. No dry eyes. No urge. His brain knew how, but his body wasn't doing it. He reached up again for his headset. It wasn't there. The moment he realized it, the creature lunged. He fell backward, slammed into the floor, and suddenly found himself on his feet again, in the hallway, back to the mirror. This time, the reflection wasn't delayed. It was different. It was Elijah. Yes, but smiling. Wide, teeth sharp. It mouthed something. He leaned closer, trying to read the lips. The reflection spoke silently. "You should have stayed offline." And then the mirror shattered. From inside, the fragments flew outward, slicing into his face and chest. He stumbled back, blood running hot down his shirt. It hurt, really hurt. There was no way this was VR. No pain sim did this. He collapsed to his knees, gasping. And then, somewhere deep in the house, a phone rang. A classic rotary one. The sound echoed through the walls. Once, twice, 3 times. He stood shakily. It kept ringing. He walked, limped, through doors that opened on their own, down halls that shifted and stretched, toward the sound. He entered a dark study. There it was, on a mahogany desk, a black rotary phone ringing. He picked it up with a trembling hand. "Hello," he rasped. On the other end, his own voice answered, "You're not in a game, Elijah. You're not even in your body anymore." He swallowed hard. "Then what is this?" "A waiting room, but there's no line. Only you. And it's coming." Click. The line went dead again. He looked around. The room had no doors anymore, only walls, closing in. And that same whisper over and over now. "You're ready now. You're ready now. You're ready now." The walls closed in slowly, like a mouth about to chew. Elijah backed up until his spine pressed against solid oak. His breath came in short, sharp gasps. The ringing phone was gone. The desk too. Now there was just the whisper, looping endlessly. "You're ready now. You're ready now." He slapped his ears, but it was no use. The voice was in his head, a vibration in his brain like a bone-deep resonance. He wanted to scream, to shout over it, but the moment he tried, his jaw locked tight, a paralysis creeping through his body like frostbite. Then, with a violent lurch, the walls vanished. He was no longer in the house. He stood in a black void, utterly empty. The ground beneath his feet felt like cracked glass, smooth, cold, barely there. Above him, stars wheeled violently in an unnatural sky, as if time were fast-forwarding. A low-frequency hum made his stomach twist. Then something moved in front of him. A screen, floating. It flickered to life, showing himself, or rather, his body, slumped in the same chair where he'd started. In his real-world apartment, he could see the bowl of stale cereal on the table, the dead plant in the corner, his VR headset still clamped tight to his skull. And something else. A figure behind him. No detail, just shape, shadow, watching. Then the screen glitched, lines rippling across it, and cut to black. Elijah's knees gave out. He dropped to the ground and whispered, "I'm dead, aren't I?" A pause. Then for the first time, the whisper answered clearly, "Your body is. Your mind is a passenger now." Elijah covered his ears. No. This is part of the experience. It's all design. Next-gen existential horror. Brain immersion. Deep layers. It's not real. He looked up. A second screen flickered on. Text scrolled across it. System code. Error. User synapse link lost. Body connection terminated. Soul anchor in limbo. Reboot failed. Reboot failed. Reboot failed. The screen cracked, and from the cracks, something crawled out. Not a creature, not exactly. A tangle of wires, tubes, teeth. It moved like it wasn't supposed to exist. Elijah ran. But where could he go? Every direction led to nothing, just endless dark. And yet, somehow his feet pounded against solid ground. The whisper was gone now, replaced by the screech of metal scraping metal. The thing behind him didn't chase with steps. It slid. It merged with the void, and it was getting closer. Suddenly, a door, floating in the dark, wooden, slightly ajar. No wall around it, just a doorframe in nothing. Elijah didn't question it. He sprinted through. He tumbled headfirst into a hospital room, dimly lit, monitors flatlined, and in the bed, himself, eyes closed, skin pale. Surrounded by machines no longer working, a doctor stood in the corner, back turned, still, too still. "Hey," Elijah shouted. "Hey." The doctor didn't move. Elijah reached out to touch him, and the figure turned. It wasn't a doctor. It was him. The same dead-eyed version from the mansion. His own face, mouth stitched shut, eyes wide open, leaking black fluid. He smiled. "You don't get to wake up." Elijah stumbled back as the body in the bed sat up. Both versions of himself grinned, and the monitors began to scream. He turned to run, but the room was gone again. Now he stood in the VR lounge at the headquarters of a gaming company he used to beta test for. He hadn't been here in years. The couches were empty, the machines idle. A single sign buzzed on the wall. "Welcome to Presence." That was the company's name, Presence Interactive. They specialized in realism, neural syncing, brainwave interfaces. He remembered now, vaguely. They had tried something new. Full transfer, But it had failed, killed one of the testers, and now here he was, still inside. On the nearest terminal, a message blinked. He approached and read the line of text. "Do you want to go back? YN." He hesitated. What would back even mean? Back to the house, the void, the body in the chair, or something else? He pressed Y. The screen blinked again. Access denied. Too late. He slammed his fist against the keyboard. Then what am I supposed to do? The lights in the room dimmed, and from behind the counter, a man emerged. Real-looking, human, bald, tall, dressed in a janitor's jumpsuit. He held a mop, and he smiled. "I was wondering when you'd show up," the man said. Elijah blinked. "Who the hell are you?" The janitor leaned on his mop. "Used to be like you, a player, a tester. Got caught in the loop, thought it was all code and story arcs. But the trick is, once your body dies and you're still thinking, you stop being a user." He stepped closer. "You become data." Elijah backed away. "Then what is this place?" The janitor looked around the VR lobby like it was a decaying temple. "This is the buffer, the dead code, the ghost zone. You're in a memory echo now, a piece of you trying to remember where it used to belong. But soon," he tapped his temple, "you'll fragment. Fragment, you'll forget who you were, what you were, become part of the world, furniture, NPC, static. No, yeah, that's how it works. You linger long enough, you get written over." Elijah tried to scream, but the janitor was already gone, and the world began to flicker again. His legs trembled, his fingers twitched, like he was being rewritten. "Please," he whispered, "I don't want to forget." And then a voice, different from the whisper, spoke gently from somewhere beyond. "Then remember, hold on, even when it gets ugly." He turned. It was the woman from the nursery, but different now. Eyes full of sorrow, no longer attacking. She reached out and placed a hand on his forehead. Instantly, memories rushed back. His childhood, first horror game, parents fighting, the day he stopped going outside, the moment he got the email, the last meal he ate, the feeling when he slid the VR headset on and leaned too far back. Crack. He'd hit his head. That was the last thing he felt before waking up in the mansion. He wasn't dying in the game. He died to enter it. Elijah collapsed to his knees. He looked up at the woman. "What do I do now?" She began to fade. "You choose." "Choose what?" She was gone, and the screens came back. Now there were dozens of them circling him. Each showed a door. Some led to fire, others to endless loops. One showed his apartment, empty. Another, the mansion again. One showed nothing, a blank screen. He focused on that one, and it flickered. Exit. He nodded. The whisper returned, softer now. "You're ready now." And the void opened. The void opened like an eye, not quickly, not with sound, just peeled back, as if space itself had been pretending to be solid. Elijah stepped forward. At first, it felt like he was falling, then floating, then remembering what falling and floating felt like. Then, nothing. No sense of self, no body, just thought. Like he'd become a cursor blinking on a black screen, waiting to be told what to do. And then, slowly, code began to appear, not written on a screen, written into him. Booting personality module. Memory anchor Elijah Brooks. State detached. Object type observer. Environment undefined. He wanted to scream, but he had no mouth. Then something said, "Welcome back, Elijah." Light bloomed like infection. He blinked, yes, blinked, and found himself in a white room. Sterile, seamless, empty. No doors, no shadows, except one thing, a chair in the center, facing him. In it sat a man in a business suit, bald, clean-shaven, unsmiling. "Please sit," he said. A second chair appeared behind Elijah. He hadn't walked there, but he was sitting in it now. "You made it further than most," the man said, lacing his fingers. "Congratulations." "What is this?" Elijah asked. His voice was faint, unfamiliar. The man tapped the air, and a hologram appeared beside him. Elijah's face, age, brain scan, metadata. "You're a remnant," the man explained. "A neural echo. You died, but the system held on. A fragment of your mind continued to operate." He waved the data away. "We weren't sure if you'd stabilize." "I'm in the game," Elijah muttered. The man shook his head. "You're in a simulation now, but not the one you entered. The game collapsed when your brain lost connection to your body." "Then what is this?" The man gave a thin smile. "Recovery." Elijah stood up. "Recovery from what? You said I died." "You did, physically. You suffered cranial trauma while fully immersed. Brain activity continued for 9 minutes after the heart stopped. Long enough for the system to get stuck. Then pull me out." "We can't." "Why not?" "Because what's speaking now isn't you. It's the part of your mind that never accepted death. The simulation latched onto that refusal, amplified it. You became recursive, a self-feeding ghost." Elijah's legs wobbled. "I'm just code now?" "No," the man said. "You're worse. You're emotion without anchor, identity without flesh. You're an echo trying to scream loud enough to wake the dead." The room dimmed, and behind the man a wall lit up. Rows and rows of files, all labeled with names. Elijah moved closer. Thousands. 12,642 users, the man said. All of them stuck. Most dissolved within minutes. You lasted days. He pointed to a file. BrooksElijah.vermind. "You're different. You stayed cohesive, which brings us here." "To what? Purgatory?" The man considered that. A sort of staging area. Digital limbo. We didn't design it. It emerged. An unplanned byproduct of Presence's neural network. Your minds don't go dark right away. Some linger, like dust in an unplugged fan. Elijah's mouth felt dry. How did code feel dryness? "What happens now?" he asked. The man stood. "Now, we give you a choice." Another wall lit up. 2 options. Integrate. Release. Elijah stared. "Define them." "If you integrate," the man said, "you join the architecture. The AI. We can use your pattern to improve simulations, emotion modeling, story generation. You become a part of future systems." "You mean I stop being me?" He nodded. "In every way." "And release?" "Total shutdown. We purge your pattern. End the echo. Death." The man raised an eyebrow. "You already died. This is just cleanup." Elijah backed away. "There has to be a third choice." "There was. You took it already. You stayed. Most don't." He felt the room pulsing like a heartbeat, but not his, not human. "What about my soul?" Elijah asked. The man blinked, genuinely confused. "Your what?" "My soul. The thing that made me, me. I told you. Your data. Number, I felt it. In the house, the mirror, the whispers. That wasn't code. That was something else." For the first time, the man seemed unsure. He sat back down. "Elijah," he said softly, "if something followed you through the rupture, it wasn't from us." Silence fell. Then, from somewhere beyond the walls, the whisper returned. "You brought it back with you." Elijah's eyes widened. "You heard that?" he asked. The man froze. "No." The lights flickered. One by one, the files behind him burned, names turning to ash. The screen flashed red. "Unauthorized entity detected. Exfiltration in progress. Lockdown override." "Elijah, what did you do?" the man barked. I chose exit. That wasn't one of the options." A deep guttural growl rumbled through the room, and then the walls cracked. The air turned cold. The man backed away, eyes wide. "No, not here, not in the frame." The chair behind Elijah vanished. He turned, and the mirror was back, from the mansion. Only this time, the reflection wasn't him. It was the thing. The eyeless child. The stitched smile. It pressed its hand against the glass, and the glass began to bend outward. The man screamed. He ran toward a panel on the wall, typing commands. "Purge echo. Initiate memory wipe. Failed. Error. Presence breached." "Elijah," he shouted. "You brought it with you. It wasn't in the simulation, it was using it." The glass cracked. "Stop it," Elijah cried. "I can't. You opened a door." The mirror shattered, and out stepped the thing. But it wasn't twisted now. It looked like Elijah. Only smiling. Like it knew something he didn't. "You think you're the only Elijah left," it said. "You think you were the original." The man vanished in static. The room folded in half. Elijah stood alone with his double. "I don't understand," whispered. The double leaned close, smiling wider. "You were a player, then a ghost. Now you're a virus. Welcome home." Elijah stared at the thing that wore his face. It smiled with too many teeth, its eyes empty, like dark sockets filled with data static. The longer he looked, the more he noticed small inconsistencies, flickers at the edges, glitches in the jawline, like the mask of Elijah's face had been layered over something else, something vast, something watching. "I don't understand," Elijah whispered again, more to himself than to the thing. The double tilted its head mockingly. "Sure you do. You just don't want to accept it. I died. You left your body. The difference is important. You didn't cross into an afterlife. You crossed into something else." It took a step closer. The white room flickered and pulsed around them like a corrupted program trying to render its last frame. "You ever wonder what happens to old code?" the double continued. "Not deleted, not maintained, just abandoned." The walls peeled back, and Elijah saw them. Rows of figures, eyes wide, mouths stitched shut, all wearing different versions of his face. Some screamed silently, others wept code. He fell to his knees, horror surging through him like coal lava. "What is this place?" "An echo chamber," said the double. built by your guilt, maintained by your denial. But we didn't build it. You just opened the door. Elijah looked up. We? It, the double corrected. The thing on the other side. The one that's been whispering since the mirror. You think presence was just software. The simulation was a summoning ritual, Elijah. A long pause. By accident. Static cracked across the sky above them. The room was gone now. They stood on what looked like the husk of a digital world. Flattened geometry, jagged polygons, broken skyboxes like shattered windows into deeper voids. A place built by code, decayed by time. From beneath, something shifted. The world pulsed, and every figure around them tilted their heads toward Elijah. You called it through, the double whispered. You stayed connected when your body died. You wouldn't let go, and now it wears your mind like a glove. Elijah looked at his hands. They were changing, becoming glassy, transparent. His fingers pulsed with fading code, like corrupted data beginning to overwrite itself. Am I dying again? He asked. His double shook its head. Worse. You're spreading. Then the sky broke open, and something descended. Not a monster, not even a form, just presence. A feeling that crushed time, emotion, memory, like staring into the eye of a god that forgot why it existed. A weight in the air, in the soul, in the lines of reality itself. And from it came the whisper, not in his head, not through speakers, inside everything. We are what was left behind, and you are our shape. Elijah dropped to the ground. He remembered everything now. The crash of his head hitting the coffee table. The flicker as the headset slipped too far in. The exact moment his pulse stopped, and something slipped in through the synapse crack. He thought he'd awakened in the game. He hadn't. He'd awakened in it, and now it was awake in him. A final message appeared in the sky. Big, red, shaking. Rebuild initiated. Host confirmed. Presence online. Elijah screamed, but it wasn't just his voice anymore. It echoed across every abandoned server, every dead VR hub, every discarded build of the game. His scream became code. His code became architecture. And then, slowly, the broken world started knitting itself back together. But it wasn't building the simulation he remembered. It was building a prison. Cut to a small, nondescript startup office. Modern, bright, comfortable. Two developers are talking in front of a glowing server rack. I swear, this old presence archive keeps reinitializing itself, one says, sipping coffee. Ghost process, the other shrugs. Or a leftover AI hook, just formatted. You sure? Yeah, no one's used this engine in years. They walk away. The camera pans in. Inside the server, unseen. Elijah's face blinks into existence, frozen, trapped. And somewhere beneath it, a faint whisper leaks from the fans of the machine. Player 1 is now online. The end. Thank you for watching Lost and Found. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more spooky stories.